All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Actually, the 10th episode, believe it or not, the 10th episode of the Miami Marlins Prospects Pod here on the Five Reasons Sports Network YouTube channel. My name is David Fernandez. I'm here, as always, with Joe Frisaro, who works off of manon2nd.com. And we're here to talk to you all about what's going on with some of the bigger names in the Marlins minor league system. We're going to give our props today to the Pensacola team that clinched a playoff spot with their performance in the first half. And from there, we're going to talk about the promotion of Jose Salas. We're going to touch on the MLB performance of Nick Fortes. We'll get into a little bit of the draft. We're going to touch on a number of different issues here today. Keep you interested and educated. So here we go. How you doing today, Joe?
I'm doing great, David. And number 10, that's good. Hey, these little milestones will be big milestones someday.
Yes,
and it's been a pleasure working with you. And I hope everyone out there is enjoying this as much as we are doing these. And prospects are always fun because there's always hope with prospects, right, David? And
hope is something that we're looking for these days.
and congrats to the Blue Wahoos up in Pensacola. As you say, they're going to be postseason bound. Now, the question is, they probably won't have their best pitcher available when the playoffs get going because he'll probably be in AAA by then. But, you enjoy the moment and kudos to them. Hats off. And, so people know there's a first half winner, second half winner, and there's playoffs and they play 3 of 5, I believe. And I think they still do that. But AA is nothing to sneeze at because AA is usually the level you can start vaulting to the big leagues, not just to AAA. But what do you think kind of were the keys? Obviously, his breakout in terms of the spotlight was Yuri Perez becoming so big. But, the position players were solid. Griffin Conine and Paul Mcintosh kind of came out of nowhere. And just kind of your thoughts on why you think the Blue Wahoos have been so good.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I showed here a second ago, this was the picture off of the Blue Wahoos Twitter handle, which is a great follow on Twitter, by the way. They are a lot of fun and they engage with their fans. But this was the picture that they posted after clinching last week. They clinched the Southern League South Division first half championship. They went 35-29. This is the 6th time in franchise history that they're making the playoffs, the first time since 2009, and it's their first division title since 2017. I'm sorry, their first playoff appearance since 2019, first division title since 2017. And we've talked about the Blue Wahoos quite a bit off and on throughout our 10-episode run here, so we'll continue that trend here this afternoon because the guys that we've touched on in different episodes, they've really led the way offensively for a talented AA Blue Wahoo squad. You mentioned some of them. Paul Mcintosh, he has kind of come out of nowhere in the Marlins system and sort of caught some people by surprise, especially considering his position at catcher. And we're going to talk more about the catching position with the Marlins here a little bit later today. But Mcintosh is hitting 276. He's got a 903 OPS, which is 5th highest in the Southern League at the moment. He's hit 8 homers, 18 doubles. He's got 35 RBI. We've talked quite a bit about Troy Johnson. He went on an incredible run in the month of May. He's got a 293 batting average, which is 7th in the Southern League at the moment. 25-year-old first baseman. He's got 815 OPS, 8 homers, 14 doubles, 41 RBI, and those 41 RBI are tied for 9th in the Southern League. And then somebody that we've talked off and on quite a bit about is Griffin Conine, right fielder, obviously son of Mr. Marlin, Jeff Conine. He's hitting 265 so far this season with an 877 OPS. His 13 homers are 6th in the Southern League. He's got 8 doubles. He's got 42 RBI, which is 7th in the Southern League. This is really the offensive spark plugs that have come together for this club. We've seen some really, really exciting things from each of those guys. Again, Mcintosh kind of surprised everybody with his production. Johnston has been one of the most consistent hitters in the system, and Conine is doing some big things in terms of extra base hits. He's showing off that power, and he's slowly but surely lowering that K rate, which is something that we've worried about with him from time to time. So an exciting crop of hitters there. You got any insights on any of those guys, Joe?
Yeah. The Mcintosh, and we'll probably hit on him on how he factors into the bigger picture. But what I really like and what I'm hearing about him is just, the way he impacts the baseball. The exit velocity, he's power. He can play corner outfield. I don't know how well, but there's some positional versatility for him, and which makes him very interesting. If he can play a little bit of left field, if he get him off from crouching behind home plate, because a little bit bigger, catcher, and just the way he impacts the ball. Conine, like you say, that power is interesting. And me, I'm about big tools. I want like the power, and they change games. And obviously you want the K rates to be manageable, but it'll be interesting to see, if he gets the call up, because we got the All-Star games coming in a couple of weeks, the minor league All-Star games. And usually after that is when you start seeing some promotions going. And guys going up, whether there's opportunity. But in the meantime, that's a pretty good core. We talked about Troy Johnston a couple of weeks ago, like you say, a little bit more of a pure hitter. He played outfield as well, and as well as first base. Saw him in the fall league last October. So that's a pretty good core of three guys that kind of are holding an offense together. Obviously, early in the year, they had Encarnacion help them get off that run. Gerard got promoted up to AAA. So yeah, a good unit. And again, there's only one champ. There are 5 or 6 teams in those divisions, but there's only one first half champ. The Pensacola Blue Wahoos are that, and good for them.
Yeah, and another major reason for their success, for their clinching that first half title, was this young man who we've talked about also quite a bit, Yuri Perez. Heard yesterday, Craig Mish tweeted out that Yuri Perez was selected to participate in the Futures game in Los Angeles this year, which is really, really exciting. You see there his ranks in the Southern League with pitchers who have thrown at least 50 innings. He's got a 12.2 K per 9 innings. He's at 34.2% K percentage, 1.9 walks per 9 innings, 5.4 walk rate, 6.3 strikeout to walk ratio. I mean, just spectacular numbers across the board from him. And again, only 19 years old for Yuri Perez. There were some questions about, do you put a 19-year-old at the AA level as sort of an aggressive placement to start the year? But he's pitched really, really well. Do you have anything on Yuri these days, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, just, kind of repeating, that this guy, the Marlins made the right call. Yes, there was was it smart? You could have put him in high A for a month and then moved him up, but they handled it well. He was ready for it. He's certainly the kind of the no-brainer futures, prospect, and to be a great experience for him. Once those rosters come out and we know for sure everything official, but going to LA pitching in Dodger Stadium, that's going to be a big thrill for him. He's going to move fast. The question with him is just innings and just not pushing him too fast too soon, because he just needs the innings. He doesn't need to be up in the big leagues or anything ridiculous at this point. But he's definitely trending that way. Just keep everything, just keep it rolling. I mean, that's all you need. It's like, you want to see those guys, how their velocity holds up as the year goes on. You want to see, how does fatigue affect them. So those are the things. He's a long, lean guy at 6'7" or so, 6'8", whatever he's officially listed at. So I'll be watching and from here, just pay more attention to his body, see how he holds up. 50 or 60 innings is one thing, but when you start getting to about 120, but I think they have everything mapped out pretty carefully with him to get him to probably in that 120 range, or maybe a little bit more. And whether he's pitching in a postseason with them or he's up in AAA, he's the one prospect that Marlin fans should be the most excited about, and and good for him on whatever accolades and individual awards he's going to get. And I'm sure he's happy because he's going to get a ring as well. Those are always nice to have.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you said, it'll be interesting to see whether or not he gets the promotion to AAA. Only 19 years old. So, it's rare to see a 19-year-old at the AA level, much less the AAA level. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of his season tracks. Another 19-year-old is making some noise in the Marlins system as he just got promoted. Talking about Jose Salas. He earned his promotion from low A Jupiter to high A Beloit last week. 19 years old. Marlins signed him in 2019. He's also spent time at second base and third base. According to MLB Pipeline, he's the number 7 prospect in the Marlins system. This year with low A Jupiter, he was hitting .267. He had 5 homers, 13 doubles, 3 triples, 24 RBI. But in June, he really sort of took off, which is, I think, why he ends up with this promotion at the end of the month. In the month of June, playing for Jupiter, he was slashing .333 with a .433 on base and a .560 slugging over 21 games, which is not a small sample. He had 3 of his homers during that stretch, 6 of his doubles, 14 RBI. He lowered his K rate to 16% that month. During the month of June, he had a 15-game hitting streak. He also had a 19-game on-base streak for the Jupiter Hammerheads. He made his debut with high A Beloit yesterday. Not the debut that, he or anybody else really wanted to see. He was 0 for 4 yesterday, had 3 strikeouts and a walk, but he struggled early in low A Jupiter this year. So even if he struggles in the initial sort of moments in his run with Beloit, it'll be interesting to see how he transitions and how he adjusts, because we've seen him make adjustments before, and he went from not producing at low A to absolutely raking at low A. What do you think about the Marlins number 7 prospect, 19-year-old Jose Salas?
Yeah. Congrats to Jose on a great promotion. Don't read too much into one, the first game. If he struggles, that's what you do. You're testing your players, and you go up and you see what that life is about, because every level you will be challenged. But kind of I did a little digging on him and the info I got on him. What the Marlins really liked, he's improved, as you noted, month to month. The quality of his contact has been much better. Look for this. He's going to play mostly third base.
Okay.
At Beloit. He'll play a little bit of short, but I think the organization is transitioning Salas to third. They already consider him by far their best defensive third base prospect. And that for anyone in their system, he's like the third baseman they like, and they kind of are targeting. And so I anticipate more of a full swing there, but you want to keep the positional versatility. But look for Salas to be the third baseman. And his defensive abilities are just been getting better, and that's part of it. His body, obviously, he's very physically big. He's an exciting prospect. I'm sure I'm sure his name would be on a lot of, if teams are calling on deals and such. His name would be probably who scouts are circling. They'd have his name there as someone trying to pry away from the Marlins. I think he's like I said, I think the power is going to come. I like that they're going to give him the challenge. If you struggle, it's fine. That's what it's for. The best prospects are the big leagues and usually hit about 200 the first month. Then some get sent down. Then some become the prospects they thought they were. It's just part of the process. But good for him being as young as he is to get this promotion.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. And that what you mentioned about him moving to third base, that makes a lot of sense, because we've talked in episodes in the past how the Marlins seem to have this glut of middle infield talent. So some of those guys are going to have to transition to other positions. So his move to third base is really something to keep an eye on, because he does have the physical tools to do it. I mean, he's 6'2", he's a big kid, and he's got good bat speed. As you mentioned, he's got good power. So it'll be fun to watch his development as a third baseman as we move through. And again, as you said, one game, you can't point at that too much. So not the debut that he wanted at Beloit, but we'll keep a close eye on him. And if we end up having sort of a trade deadline special show, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about Jose Salas as we get later into this month. But we've got, some other prospects that are making noise in the system. Well, actually, the one that we're about to mention, another 19-year-old, not really making much noise at all because he's been hurt, is Joe Mack, the catcher. And I bring him up because the Marlins have 4 19-year-olds in their top 10, according to the MLB Pipeline website. And, we've already mentioned Yuri Perez. We already mentioned Jose Salas. Joe Mack is another one. Then Cahill Watson is the other. Now, the interesting thing about Mac is that, the Marlins drafted him a year ago, and you thought maybe catcher of the future with him. But as we're watching the Marlins play these days, there's another guy that's pushing for this sort of catcher of the future spot, and he's playing with the big club right now, and he did this the other day.
0-1, high fly ball, deep left field. Fortes did it with 2 out in the 9th inning.
Of course, I'm talking about catcher Nick Fortes, who thrilled Marlins fans over the weekend with his walk-off homer against the Mets. He's somebody that the Marlins drafted in the 4th round of 2018. So he's been with the franchise for a few years. They drafted him out of Ole Miss, who incidentally won the College World Series over the weekend. And he's been somebody that's kind of flown under the radar in terms of prospects. He wasn't listed as a top 30 prospect by MLB Pipeline until I think at the very end of last season. Baseball America was a little higher on Fortes as he went through the system. They had him as the number 21 prospect coming into 2022. But with the Marlins, he's playing really, really well from an offensive standpoint. He's hitting 300 after last night's game in St. Louis. He's got a 979 OPS. He's got 3 homers, 8 RBI. He's got a couple doubles in 14 games played. You'll note the little asterisks there. The other Marlins catchers, Jacob Stallings and Peyton Henry, the other guys who've played at the catcher position, they've only hit 184 this year, 38 for 206 in 2002. He wasn't much of an offensive threat as he was moving through the system, but he's somebody that's really sort of jumped out to Marlins fans. He's jumped off the screen for Marlins fans. What would you like to cue us in on with Nick Fortes, Joe?
Every time you see him, what's not to like? Obviously it's a very, very small sample size, but he's got a really good approach. He's got a good swing, and he's one of those guys who seems to, because his minor league numbers don't even, blow you away, but he seems to be able to handle the big leagues, handle the moment. And, when I see what he's been doing, and you noted a 4th rounder, and, I'm going to tie this in a little bit to the Marlins pick 6 in the MLB draft coming up in a couple of weeks. And they've been linked, it's in some, projections, to Georgia Tech catcher Kevin Pareda, who actually I heard do an interview about a month or so ago on Sirius XM. A very impressive young man, just 20 years old, 6'1", 197. He's from California. He's from LA area. 60 games, hitting 361 at Georgia Tech with a 453 on base, 709 slugging, 1,162 OPS, 26 homers, 88 RBIs. And that says, take the guy, right? Yeah. And I'm leery. I just, I talked to some people who see him as, I know there's, and I wish the kid well, with the 6th pick, I don't think if I'm the Marlins, I take Pareda. And one of the reasons is, like Nick Fortes, 4th rounder. JT Realmuto, 2010, a 3rd rounder. Sean Murphy with the Oakland A's, doing a little research on him. He's I think he's a 3rd or 4th rounder as well. And my point is, I'm looking for a more impactful bat there. And I'll bring up even Joey Bart, who was the 2nd overall pick out of Georgia Tech in 2018. With the Giants, he got called up, not performed well offensively or defensively at the big league level. He's back down at AAA, Joey Bart, at 25 years old. He was going to replace Buster Posey. And just for context, at Georgia Tech in 18, Joey Bart hit 359 with 471 on base, 632 slugging, 1,102 OPS, 16 homers, 38 RBIs. My point being is, some of these don't get too carried away by the offensive numbers. I did. Sean Murphy, 3rd rounder with Oakland. He went to Wright State, which Peyton Burdick, of course, went to. That's another one. Will Smith of the Dodgers, an all-star at a Louisville college guy, 32nd overall. So essentially a second rounder. And I'm going to bring this name up. Our FSU fans out there might remember Cal Raleigh. He's 25 years old. He's with the Mariners. He was a third rounder from FSU. Lefty bat. I've seen him play several times. And every time I see him play, he homers. He's a guy, he's hitting 194 at the big leagues, but a 745 OPS with 10 homers in the first half. He's impactful at FSU in 18, 326 batting average, OPS over 1,000, with 18 doubles, 13 homers, 54 RBI. So my point is, I'm not sold on, going Kevin Parada. I think I noted a week or so ago that Elijah Green could be slipping. If he's certainly there at 6, I'm probably jumping at him, even with strikeout concerns. But just kind of your thoughts, because I do think, one last point, that Fortes, Jacob Stallings was a 7th rounder. Stallings is going to be around a couple of years. Fortes may wedge more playing time. McIntosh could come up. I think the Marlins could probably get a catcher in the 3rd round that could potentially be a big leaguer. We just saw potentially with Fortes. So just kind of your thoughts on, do you go with the catcher? Do you have the conviction in a catcher, or do you, go somewhere else? And just your thoughts in general on the future of the catching position here.
Yeah, listen, it's a debate that's sort of shifted over the course of the last few weeks, because if we would have had this conversation, in episode 5 of our pod instead of episode 10, we might have had a very different outlook, considering, the light hitting nature of Jacob Stallings, and Peyton Henry wasn't doing anything with the bat, at the major league level. And he's kind of on the shelf for a while. He's got a thumb injury, so he's not even going to be playing with Jacksonville at the AAA level. But you look at Fortes and you look at the emergence of Fortes, and you see somebody who's really, really exciting, somebody who's got pop in his bat. Fortes is somebody who's familiar with some of the biggest pitching prospects in the system. He was sort of Edward Cabrera's catcher at the major league level because, in part, he caught him at both AAA and AA. We've seen him catch Braxton Garrett exclusively at the major league level. He's caught Max Meyer in the past. So this is a guy that, if they keep him at the major league level, and as these other pitching prospects emerge and come up, he's somebody that they're going to feel comfortable with. And I do think that he's going to push Stallings for more and more playing time if he's having those impactful at-bats, which you've talked about. The impactful at-bats are the important ones. Now, as far as the Marlins using the number 6 overall pick on a catcher, at this point, I would probably look in a different direction. I know that MLB.com, in their latest mock draft, they had the Marlins taking Kevin Parada, the catcher out of Georgia Tech. And he, as you said, solid bat. He's got good power. He runs pretty well. Maybe he shifts to a different position down the line. Maybe a first baseman or something. But Marlins fans might be a little wary of, really good statistics from college hitters, because, even though he's impacting the ball pretty well right now, JJ Bleday's batting average has never been
340 or whatever in college
at Vandy. So it'll be interesting to see if they go in that direction. I saw in some of the other research I've seen, they've been linked to Jacob Berry, the third baseman and outfielder from LSU. And Marlins fans might have some aversion to choosing kids out of Louisiana, especially with guys like Josh Booty, who was supposed to be somebody early in the franchise, but then, with ESPN.com, their latest mock had the Marlins taking Tamar Johnson, the second baseman, having him slide, in the same way that Cahill Watson slid last year. So that would be an interesting bat. It's tough. I think when you're at that point in the draft, you probably want to take the best player available. Now, how they evaluate best player available, is it Parada? Is it Jacob Berry? Is it a guy like Johnson if he's fallen? That would be really, really interesting. So it'll be interesting to see how the Marlins sort of deal with it. I think right now, without obviously having drafted Parada or anybody else at this point, I think Stallings, as you said, is going to be on this roster for a while, team control for at least the next 2 years. Solid. Really good defensively. And then, he calling the games and dealing with the pitchers. If Fortes can complement him as a bat off the bench, if they can almost be like a platoon catching situation, that looks pretty good. And then obviously you've got somebody waiting in the wings in Paul Mcintosh, who's probably going to push to the AAA level at some point, and then might get a look at the major league level down the line, and maybe at the end of the year when the rosters expand some. He could play DH for sure. Who knows if he can transition to another position? But I think as of right now, with Fortes and McIntosh, and we haven't seen much from Joe Mack because of the injuries. He's currently on the injured list right now with a hamstring strain. I think he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. They probably have enough depth in their catching system right now where it makes sense for them to go in a different direction at the draft. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, the comp I actually got on Parada is JP Arencibia. We have our good friend, and JP was a first rounder, I believe, right? A later first round, and he had, a really solid career. But the question then is, and I hope JP is watching. We love JP, but do you go with that type of player with the 6th pick? If they could get Johnson, if he falls to them, I gobble him up real fast. Depends who else on the board. I did see him play. That kid's an advanced hitter, lefty high school kid, but tools are tools. I think that if somebody like that, and there will be surprises. It doesn't just always fall in line because signability and the NILs are going to be interesting. We talked about Jackson Holiday and a week or so ago, and that guy, from one of my sources, he should go 1-1. They say he's the best player and best high school player in this draft. Others disagree, but that's how talented he is. But you get a kid like him, who's Matt Holiday's kid, who's got a lot of money, family money. He could go play at Oklahoma State, where his dad is the assistant volunteer coach. His uncle's on the coaching staff. And what is his NIL going to be? He might make a couple of million a year. So you're looking at $8 million. So that's going to factor into all of this. So it'll be interesting to see what the Marlins do. But I'm in agreement, and I think I probably am either looking at the college third baseman and Berry or whoever else. But I'm probably looking other than a catcher, because I think Fortes may sway you there, because let's face it, it's rare to have that really high-end offensive catcher. If you have a solid catcher offensively who could be an average defensive catcher, like JT Realmuto is not having a great year by JT standards. But if you look at Fangraphs WAR, I think he has the third among qualified catchers. He's like number 3 or 4. And right under him was Sean Murphy, who's hitting like 215, but his WAR is up there. Unqualified catcher. So you're right. I think you could look at maybe Stallings getting a 90 games and Fortes getting 70. I think you could see, remember the Braves did that a few years ago before d'Arnaud kind of took over. But, I could see more of that 90, 70, 85, 75 type of split of games rather than just, this is my everyday guy, go get him. And, it's my $100 million catcher. So, but yeah, we wanted to talk about that and the catching. We're gonna have a lot more on the draft. And we'll have more on Cahill Watson. Real quickly on him, because I did get some intel on him. We know he's struggling. Sure. We know he's not been his greatest year. And from what I'm told, and probably it's not going to be the worst thing in the world for him, because a lot of times you're going to experience failure at pro ball. Absolutely. When are you going to get it? It's humbling. The key with him and the encouraging thing with him is he's super athletic. He's super talented. The bat speed is elite. The swing is really good. And now he's being humbled. Defensively, I've heard a lot of improvement with footwork. Looks like he could probably handle short. So there's a maturation. Now you just kind of look, okay, kid, it's not as easy as high school. It's not easy as going to tournaments and dominating there. This is pro ball. Everyone's wanting to eat. Everyone wants to get paid. So you got to work harder for it. There could be a little maturity things, but he's young and he's just been given a lot of money. So that probably would affect would have affected me at 18, 19
Absolutely.
years old. You know,
Me too.
so all these you factor in. So I'm still very high on Watson. And, you know, we're throwing these scenarios out with the 6th pick. And we nitpick here, just so everyone's clear. David knows, but for the audience to know, we're nitpicking because you're going to make a $6 to $7 million investment. You want to get it right, and a lot of times it's very thin and to go one direction or the other. I'm probably leaning bat regardless over arm, but I'm probably not taking the catcher from Georgia Tech. Excuse me. I just just from what I'm hearing, and I know that doesn't line up with some mock drafts. Maybe the Marlins are thinking differently, but we're presenting, an argument to maybe go in another direction.
Yeah, so we'll keep a close eye on not only the prospects within the Marlins system, but the draft is about 3 weeks away. It's going to start on July 17th, I think. So about 3 weeks from now, we'll have at least 2 more episodes in the run up to the draft. So we'll talk a little bit more about what we think the Marlins might do. We'll take a look at some of the higher prospects. Maybe we'll go a little bit deeper. Maybe we'll start looking at 2nd and 3rd round guys, since we know that those guys can be contributors at the major league level as well. And then again, as we've done throughout the season, we will keep you updated on what's going on with all of the big names in the system. We tend to highlight guys that are doing really, really well. We could always check in on guys that are coming back from injury. Max Meyer is back from his recent injuries. He's pitching pretty well. Jordan Holloway is back from his injury as well. He seems to be being used almost seems like they're setting him up to become a reliever at this point instead of a starter. So we'll continue to check in on those guys as we move forward, and we'll check in on the Watsons and the Max, and we'll check in on how Salas is doing at high A, and we'll continue to keep tabs on this Pensacola team, which is a lot of fun to watch. And we will keep you up to date. We will keep you in the loop in terms of what's going on with these Marlins prospects as we get closer to the end of July. Maybe we'll do a trade deadline special show talking about where the Marlins are. Are they buyers? Are they sellers? Who can they go for? Who can they give up? Stuff like that. So, the Marlins are still fighting. They're still trying to compete. They're still sort of in the discussion right now. An important stretch for the team coming up, obviously. So we'll keep a close eye on what they're doing and how that affects the prospects. But for now, make sure you check out the link that's scrolling underneath at the bottom of the screen there, dugoutmugs.com/man-on-2nd. Get your hands on a dugout mug. You can get a Marlins logo or really the logo of any other team, to enjoy the beverage of your choice. Obviously, if you like what you've watched here today, subscribe, throw on those notifications for the 5 Reasons Sports Network YouTube channel. You'll get content on all South Florida sports, talking about Miami Heat, Miami Dolphins, Miami Hurricanes, Inter Miami, Florida Panthers, even beyond. So make sure that you throw on those notifications. If there's anybody that you'd like us to talk about in the future, you can comment down below and we'll get to it. You could reach out on social media. You can tag us on Twitter. I'm at @DL Fernandez, as you can see there. Joe's at Joe Frisaro or at Man-on-2ND. You can get to us there. But otherwise, thanks for watching, everybody.